Hey guys, it's LooseArrowBoy, and welcome to the first masterclass episode, number 1.1 of Why to Invest Personal Finance Basics. So what I'm hoping to do with this masterclass series is actually be a more long-form version of the personal finance basic episodes. There's going to be limited editing, a lot less clickbaity kind of lines and titles, and it's more so for people that are interested in the concepts that I talk about in the personal finance basics series. This is more in-depth information about it. Depending on the topic and how I feel about talking about it, it might be more free form, definitely longer, and it will contain more candid opinions that I have on these basic finance principles. I will also include how I'm also incorporating these into my personal finance strategy and how to actually implement them. So these are definitely going to be longer episodes, and I would suggest you watch them in a more passive manner. If you want to look up more concise information, that will definitely be in my basic finance series, or look up other YouTubers that cover that specific topic you're looking for. So in episode 1, I was explaining why to invest early, and there are several topics within that. One of the topics is the 8% gain in interest over time from investing in an index fund. The other is just the idea of compound interest in time. Another is I touched on the 4% rule of withdrawing from your portfolio, which could last, or most likely would last, indefinitely. And lastly, I would want to talk about my own personal goals and how I'm going to use these strategies in my own personal finance. So where does this 8% interest or return come from? So historically, index funds, especially what's been looked at is the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is an index fund that tracks the overall performance of the market. And more specifically, it contains 500 of the most traded companies. These companies are selected by, a committee. And I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what criteria they pick, but I'm assuming, it's good to assume, not good to assume, but you can think of it as these people think these are the top 500 companies that reflect the market as a whole. Year over year, the stock market has always gone up in the course of like a 20-30 year period. The stock market is higher than it was in the beginning of that 20-year period. There will definitely be times the S&P 500 might be like negative 200, negative 20%, negative 30%, but it will balance out over the course of many years. And the year count is between like 10, 20, 30 years. So you might be down 20%, 10%, but the next year you might be up by 40%, 50%. You'll dip down again and dip up again. But overall, the average percent return per year will be 8%. Overall, index fund investing has beat individual stock pickers overall. Most people that try to pick individual stocks, or they don't try to imitate this kind of diversification, usually end up underperforming the market. So for a majority of people, I would say about 99% of people, it is best to just invest in index funds. And it's a very passive process. You can automate your accounts to deposit a certain amount of money into your investment portfolio, which then automatically gets invested. If you have a 401k or some other kind of retirement plan through your employer, you are already doing this without knowing it. So let's just say you're contributing up to your match 3%, and then your company also gives you 3%, so 6% of your income. It gets put into a 401k, but depending on how your company has allocated, or which investment broker your company has partnered with, that group or that company will invest that money into some of their plans. Maybe they're called retirement plans for like 2050, 2055, 2060. And basically they act as diversification. These are diversified funds that over time will reallocate the money or the holdings from growth stocks to more stable bonds. And basically the idea is by the time you retire, they're promising a gain of about 8% over the course of holding that portfolio. And then by the time you retire, that overall value would be secure because most of it has been allocated to bonds. We talked about how the index funds, or most index funds, at least the S&P 500, the market generally returns about 8% a year. There is a catch to this. So when you invest into index funds, or when you invest in general, especially into the stock market, if you're playing the long game, you shouldn't expect to have access to those returns for at least 10 to 20 years. If you need that money within that 10-year time period, you're better off just keeping it as cash or keeping it in a savings account. The reason being is because, like I said, the market fluctuates. Some years it'll be under 20%, some years it might be up 15%, other years it'll be down 5%. So the idea is if you need the money within those 10 years, you might need it during a time that the market is down. And you don't want to take money from your portfolio which has depreciated. However, if you plan not to use that money in 10 plus years, you are more likely to have a positive return. Another topic that's kind of brought up is a lot of people think that saving and investing money now or for retirement is basically just hoarding a bunch of money. So let's say you need $1 million in retirement. When I say you need $1 million in retirement, they're thinking, oh, I need to save $1 million by the time I'm retired. But if we go back to what I was explaining in the video, you can start at age 20, invest $75 a week, and that will become $1 million in 40 years. And what's crazy is your personal contribution to that is only about $156,000. So because of the compounding effect of the money in the stock market, you don't need to save $1 million. You actually just saved $156,000 within a 40-year time period. And that's really not a lot of money in the grand scheme of, the power of compound interest and like potentially your income. If you have a high income, $75 a week isn't super difficult to do. Other people are in more difficult positions, but if you do have disposable income and you have the idea that you could just put in a certain amount of money, even if it's less than, that $75, any amount can be significant in the future. Basically, any dollar you spend in your, between your 20s and 30s could be $10 in 30 to 40 years. So if I buy a phone that is like $500, that is actually $5,000 30 years from now, if I were to have invested that money instead. So it's having that clear understanding of the power and compounding of your money, which is the most important. That's what I fear the most personally, is from the people I know and the people I've conversed with. They don't quite understand how important or how powerful their money today is compared to what it could be, or the power of their money today in the future is how it's a better way to describe it. Of course, there is the counter argument that I'm not going to live that long, or I want to use my money today. So what you should do is, with these concepts, these personal finance concepts in mind, is incorporate that into your daily spending, monthly spending, yearly spending. It's all about spending money and time on the things that are most important to you, that give you the most value. People always joke about like, oh, it's because you're buying avocado toast, or like you're buying a new phone, or you're just buying coffees, $10 coffees every day. I mean, those do add up. Are those really bringing you happiness, right? Could you take an extra 15 minutes a day to just make coffee at home? So let's just say perchance you decide to not buy those $10 coffees anymore, right? Or you decide not to buy like those $5 coffees plus like the $5 sandwich, breakfast sandwich or whatever, and instead you make your own coffee for cents, and you make your own sandwich, maybe like less than $1. But you can see how just cutting back on that, now you have $70 extra, and then you could invest that money, right? And that money could be $1 million in the future if you do it every week. And this also doesn't mean you can't have any vacations or you can't do anything that's fun. It's about picking things that give you the most value. Sometimes you just want to hang out with friends, but hanging out with friends doesn't mean you need to go out, clubbing and buying a bunch of drinks. It could be just inviting them over or going over to someone's, apartment and just having drinks and talking with each other. So it's things like that I find the most important about having this kind of knowledge, is to make the best decisions now so you don't regret it in the future. If someone 100% understood these fundamentals and they still decided, hey, I'm not going to save the $75 a week, I'm just going to do whatever because, that's the most fun, that's fine. Like, they have accepted the fact that they won't have, a luxurious retirement, or, maybe their family will help support them in their retirement, right? It's just very important that you understand the consequences of your actions now so that you don't go on to regret it later. The other concepts, compound interest in time. So basically, you understand how compounding works. The idea is, like, if you had like a penny and you doubled it each day, how it could grow into billions and billions of dollars. When people talk about like the index funds returning 8% on average a year, it's not that I'm going to invest $100,000 and I'm going to get 8% back, like 20 years from now. It's actually every year that goes by, you get 8%. That 8% gets added on. So now you have, we started with $100,000, get 8% after the first year. Now you have $108,000. Then you get 8% of $108,000. And it just keeps going and going and increasing. So the earlier you do it, the more time. One, remember, we're talking about the 10-year, 30-year time period. The more time your account will be able to follow the market up, and the less effect decreases during each year will be, and the more your money can compound. What's really fun is just using these retirement and compound interest calculators. If you're just starting out and you have no idea, like, you just want to experiment with what is possible, I definitely recommend you playing around with these investment calculators. So if we go back to my video, right? We were saying that you're going to save for 40 years and save $75 a week, and that'll become $1 million. So let's just say you decide to delay this saving by 5 years. So now you only have 35 years. Now you only have $700,000. Can you imagine that? You lost $300,000 by just waiting 5 years. So let's look at that again. $1,050,000. Wait 5 years. Only $700,000. You're only contributing $3,900 a year. So like $4,000. I think that is very doable for many people's incomes. Depending on where you live, it'll be more difficult, but $4,000 in the grand scheme of your income, I believe, is very doable. But okay, so let's just say we only have 35 years because we waited. We still need to make $1 million because we expect to use a $40,000 salary in retirement because of our standard of living. So how much more? I don't know the calculation, so let's just, just plug in the numbers. It's fun for me. 106 is actually too little. 107. Okay, $108. $1,005,000. So because you waited 5 years, you have to contribute $108 a week, which is about 25. Wow. Okay, I'm very wrong. 33. Okay, so you have to contribute $33 more a week to reach that $1 million goal. So what does that look like? So now you have to contribute at least $1,700 more. You need $1,700 more a year. And especially at these lower incomes, like let's say you only make $40,000 a year, or $50,000 a year, the extra $1,000 in order to catch up could be a really big deal. So that's how important just 5 years makes. So let's just, I did go over just like the 30 years. Yeah, I did go over 30 years. But let's just say you waited 10 years instead. And what did I say was about like $130? Dude, it's more than 130. If you waited 10 years instead to reach that $1 million goal, you need to contribute $164 a week, and that is $8,528, right? That's almost $4,000 to $5,000 more than if you had another 10 years. And this is because you decided, because you didn't know, right? You didn't know that saving $75 a week when you were 20 could become so powerful. But now that you're just learning it when you turn 30, you now have to do $164 a week, $3,000 more a year. And that could be very hard, right? This is very close to $10,000 a year. And if you don't have the income to support that, you know, you have to readjust your goals, readjust your budget, really see what it means to retire in your situation. I know it sounds very bleak, but you know, I just really want to emphasize the fact that time itself is more important than the actual mass of dollars that you make, right? Money can go a long way if you give it time. I want to go back to how someone would say, hey, I want to use that money now. Like, who cares if it compounds in 10 or 15 years? The idea is to make a balanced budget so you can still do your fun things, but knowing in the background that your goals are being met. Like I was saying before, you can automate this process. You just set a rule on your bank account to just give $75 a week, $100 a week, whatever amount you have set to be your goal in retirement, to go into your investment portfolio that is automatically invested. And then whatever money is left in your, checking account is money you can use because you already know that money has been taken out for your retirement. You could also automate it further than that and just have it be taken out of your check from your company towards your 401k. You might have different strategies or goals. Personally, me, I do the 401k match, but I also have my traditional taxable investment portfolio. But that's because my investing is not just for retirement, it's also to be utilized sometime in the near future, maybe when I'm 40 or when I'm 50. One of the last things I mentioned in Why to Invest is the 4% rule. The 4% rule, there's a whole study on it. I don't know the name, you can look it up, but trust me, there's been research done, studies done, that if you had a portfolio and I think it was 90% was allocated to stocks and about 10% was allocated to bonds, if you were going to plan to take 4% from that portfolio every year, there is a 96% chance that portfolio would last indefinitely. What's interesting is if you make it 100% stocks, it's 100%, not 100%, but likely 100% that your portfolio would retain its value and actually increase. There are reasons for putting it into bonds, but let's just say, for the sake of the argument right now, it's if you take 4% from your investment portfolio, it will last forever. That takes into account how year over year, the average return of the market is 8%, could be more, but it's around there. So if you were to take somewhere between 3.5% to 4% from that portfolio over time, it will last indefinitely and probably even grow much, much more than what you take out. You can take that idea, right, and think about what kind of retirement you would like. So if you had $1 million in retirement, you can safely take 4% of it every year. So you'd have about a $40,000 income, right? If you wanted a safe $80,000 income, you need $2 million. You could take more money from it, right? Maybe you do need more money. However, that decreases the chances that your portfolio will last indefinitely. So 4%, 3.5%, that's where it is the safest. This 4% rule applies to any portfolio amount. It's just the larger your portfolio is, the more likely this will be successful. But if you dial it back, you had $800,000, you could withdraw that money at 4% and have a $30,000 income. Let's just say hypothetically, you made a lot of money. Let's say you made like $100,000, right? And you kept investing you saved 50% of your income. So let's actually look at some more math over here. Okay, fine, $50,000. So if you invested $965 a week, In 10 years, you'd have $756,000. So this is your now age 40. Let's go to age 50. So by year 20, so we're saying that you started doing this investing when you're age 30. So in 20 years, investing about $961 a week, which is about $50,000 a year, you would have a portfolio of about $2 million, $2,288,000. Okay, so let's find out what. So now you're 50, and imagine if you had this $2 million, right? Let's just use easy math. $2 million, that should be $80,000. So a safe withdrawal rate of 4%. I did division because I'm stupid. So if you have $2 million, you can safely withdraw about 4%, which is $80,000. So basically, you are age 50, making a passive income every year of $80,000 from just your investments. Like, you don't have to do anything. So this kind of ties into what my personal plan is. Right now is because, I still live at home with my family and I have very little expenses. I'm trying to invest and save as much money as I can now so that it can take advantage of the compound interest in time. And what I'm hoping to do is at a certain point that I could tap into my investment portfolio to supplement my income. Whatever year it is, let's just say I only have $500,000 invested and maybe I need more income, right? Maybe for whatever reason, I take like a huge pay cut or something. I can still take about $20,000. So if I took a $20,000 pay cut, I can still have the same standard of living that I did have. How I think of it is every $100 I invest, I increase my salary by $4. You ever think about like video games when you level up your character? You buy better equipment and then you use that better equipment to kill more monsters or stronger monsters to get more money than you did before. And you use that money to buy even better equipment and it keeps like compounding over and over again. Basically, that's the same way I see this. Like, what can I do with my money, that can make me get to the next level in life? And unfortunately, it's much more boring in real life. And it's a lot slower. When I first started this I was so worried, or I was so excited for the future, but I was so bummed out how long it would take. But every year counts. That's why I was so aggressive. I was trying to be so aggressive. I was only making about $45,000 a year, and I was trying to, after taxes, invest $25,000. I just wanted the money to go in, but the thing was, even though I'm investing so much money, I don't see the numbers go up. I barely see it go up. I'm only gonna probably see the number go up maybe 1,000, or even worse, I might just see my money go down $10,000, which I did because I started in January 2020. And when the market was going down and everyone was skeptical about everything, everything was kind of bad, no one knew what was happening, but that's when I started investing, and I saw my portfolios drop about $10,000, but I just kept it in there, and to date it's probably flat. Even with what's going on in the market currently, it's basically flat. But this is only a two-year time span, right? 2 to 3 year time span. These concepts of compound interest and time, they don't really start manifesting until 10 plus years, right? It's a little discouraging. The other thing that I also do is I do invest in index funds, but I invest in index funds that have a little bit higher of a dividend yield. So I get about 3% coming in. So it's nice to see these dividends coming in. Like this is money that I could use without selling any stocks. But for now, I'm just reinvesting it. There's a whole argument about how growth stocks versus dividend stocks, they both technically grow at the same rate, but the growth of the dividend stocks is getting taxed, so you lose some. But remember, it depends on your personal goals. My personal goals is sometime in the future to actually utilize this investment income as supplementary income. So that's why my strategy is around these taxable dividend portfolio. Right. We went over the 8% return of index funds, the S&P 500. Went a little bit more in depth about the power of compound interest and time, how the 4% rule, what it means and how it's implemented, you know, according to your portfolio, and how it in turn can become an infinite money printer. And I went over what I am personally doing. I'm trying to invest as much money as possible now so that when it grows over time, I can pull from it as a supplementary income to whatever stage of life. So this was the first episode of the masterclass, you know, a supplementary video to my personal finance basics video. I know it's a little bit more ranty, a little bit more candid. I hope I was able to go over some skepticism you may have had about some of those investment strategies, what exactly they mean in a more long form approach. There's definitely more questions people might have, definitely more in depth that you can go to really understand and take action. And these videos are just a way for me to kind of review and go over my own personal finance strategies, how I'm going about it, and kind of distributing that information and knowledge to other people that are also going through the same process as me, and kind of just, you know, a nice double check for me to review it and see if it really makes sense. And hopefully if you guys have questions, you know, ask them, you know, put it in the comments so that I can see, you know, where the skepticism is. Like, what would stop someone from trying to enact some of these? Like, sometimes, yeah, your income is not enough to sustain you. Maybe you only have just enough for day to day, but I'd hope that understanding that putting a little bit of money as early as possible can have significant change and foundation over time. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and you found this information useful, leave a like and subscribe. I hope you can join me on this financial journey, and together we can learn and grow our financial futures together.